And that's Kale Brock.
Hey, what's up, guys?
Thanks for being with us today, Kale. So
Thanks
the
for having
intro
me,
we got
boys.
about you. Yeah, thank you. So Kale Brock is a multi-talented and creative storyteller from Australia who has made a name for himself through his writing, public speaking, and filmmaking. His interests in health and wellness have driven him to produce 2 documentaries, the Gut Film and the Longevity Film, along with 4 books. His surfing-based YouTube channel has amassed nearly 3.5 million views and almost 55,000 subscribers. Check out his films, books, and social media for genuine and insightful content to get inspired for your own surfing or longevity. Yeah, thanks for being with us today, Kale.
Thanks, guys. I'm currently gazing out over a rather nice little A-frame over here to your left, screen left. So I'll try and keep my eyes peeled on the...
It can be distracting. It's not for us, though. Drew and I are both unfortunately landlocked. So
so I'm just super jealous now.
Yeah, me too. Next
I had a
time.
good little wiggle this morning. I took out the foamy. It's been small. We've had, I don't know if you've seen, but we've had literally one of the best winters the east coast of Australia has ever had. It was just swell after swell after swell, and the banks lined up and everything was just, it was incredible. And I could not find time to not surf. Like, it was just absolutely pumping. So this is the first flat week that it's been, and everyone's already getting withdrawals like 4 days in, and we're all getting our foamies out, getting the longboards out, skimboarding, doing anything to just get in the water.
What is flat for you? Like, is it like lake or
No,
it
doesn't really. That doesn't really happen on the east coast of Australia. It's one foot.
okay.
Like it's maybe knee to waist high. Yeah, it's pretty small though.
Still rideable though? So you could still get out on a foam board and have a great time.
Yeah, no. So pretending like you're this spiritual surfer guy who doesn't want to shred 5 turns to the beach.
But deep down, we all want to do that.
I think so.
Yeah, for sure. So, but when did you start surfing? What was that journey?
It's funny. I started when I was 10, but at that age, I was deeply into football, AFL, so Aussie rules football, because I grew up in South Australia, which is not typically a surf state. There's lots of beaches, but there's not a whole heap of waves at close call. So there's a lot of driving involved if you want to be a surfer. So it's not the first thing that you get into in South Oz. So football was my thing, and that was probably going to be a career for me. And by the time I was 16, I was kind of talking with AFL clubs and going through the draft process and all that sort of stuff. But I was just addicted to surfing at that point. When I was 10, someone took me out on a longboard and sort of said, "Oh, here you go, like, find your way." And I just surfed for like 3 hours, and I came in, and I remember telling Mum, and I was like, "Mum, there's something about this sport. Like, I'm pretty interested in this sport." And it just kept going from there. My brother started surfing as well, and he's 2 years older, and that's a recipe for like pushing yourself and being obsessed with it and sort of emulating what he was doing. So I used to hang out with all of them, and they were obviously surfing a lot better than I was. So it pushed me to try and match them and surf with them. And it was great. And now I'm 20 years into being a surfer. So I'm almost 30. So it's, it's pretty cool.
Oh, 30
That is really cool. Yeah. I'm thinking about myself and my brother right now have a similar situation where we're both starting to kind of get into rock climbing, and it's cool because we're both climbing, kind of competing at the same level. And then you get into competition with the other person. But I really like that about the sport, and that it allows me to really push myself, and I can watch myself incrementally get better. What was it about surfing that made you instantly connect with it like that versus Aussie rules football, for example?
Yeah, I mean, I think Aussie rules, I was really interested in the game side of things, but when it came to the environment around there was a lot of this. I don't know. That's what I would call toxic masculinity, like a football club. Like it was just this sort of weird bravado and a lot of deep-seated insecurities going on. Like it was sort of weird, and I really struggled with that. I struggled to connect with people, and I sort of always ended up on my own. I didn't really drink or party too much at all growing up. Even now, I still, very rarely drink or party. So it just didn't suit me. And then surfing was like, I guess in the actual doing of it, it was quite attractive in that there was this deep flow state, and I didn't know what it was back then. I had no label for it, but there was there were moments that were etched in my mind. I still have images from that first surf etched in my mind of how it felt, what the board looked like as it was gliding across the water, how it felt when I stood back on the board and leant across and tried to turn on the wave, you know, like, sorry, that's my drink bottle. All those moments were just so attractive and everlasting that there was no way that I couldn't do it. And then, you know, growing up in a place where there wasn't a whole heap of surf, you become more addicted because you just don't get it. It's not on your doorstep. You have to work for it. And you're like I suppose you're like, I don't know what it's like, but you're like a drug addict and you're just like, I need surfing. Well, how can I get my next fix? And, you know, it was like when I was 16, I got my license, and it was the biggest deal because that meant I had independence and I could go when in my freeze in school. I did really well at school, but I used to sort of negotiate with my teachers to have lessons off to go surfing because I was doing so well. I was allowed to. So, you know, it was all those different things that there was no way I was going to those lengths to play football, you know, and to an extent, maybe footy came too easy and it wasn't as much of a challenge as surfing because I wasn't the best at surfing and I was never really going to do it professionally. It was always like there was a bit of a chip on my shoulder, like, no, I got to get better and all that sort of stuff. So maybe that was part of it, but now it's just totally embedded in my life. I mean, I'm living here at the beach, you know, and keeping an eye on the waves all day, you know, so there's no way I'm going to sit at a football stadium and look at the grass grow.
That would be much more boring than
I'd say so.
And seeing that. But that makes sense. I think one of the things that is attracting to the sport is the feeling that you had that first wave is no different than today. And it as you progress, the feelings is the same. So you can have as much fun on a foam board at 1 foot or half a meter surf or whatever it is as you are on 8 foot wave pounding surf. It to me, that's the best thing I love about the sport. And I chase that exact thing. Yeah. I'm like 2 hours from the beach. So like, it's the same thing. We're always, anytime I would go, when I was a kid, I'd be like in the water from dawn to dusk and getting every minute I could from surfing. And I feel, how far was the drive when you were in South Australia?
It was South Oz is very interesting. It's a hidden gem. The South Oz has the best waves in Australia. This is the weird thing, but it's not in the city. You know, it's 10 hours drive into the desert.
Wow.
That's where the best waves are. And so you can't do that every weekend, especially when you don't have your license and especially when you don't really know the area, you don't know where to go. It's very secret. It's very gnarly out there. There's lots of sharks. There's lots of gnarly locals, lots of empty property and bush and then, you know, cliff and then pumping waves. Like it's incredible. But in winter, we had some waves 15 minutes away every now and then, you know, I guess similar to, actually not even close to Florida, like worse than Florida. And then 45 minutes away, that's when you sort of got close to something like Florida, a lot of little reef setups, some really good for turns and nothing special. And then you would drive an hour and a half. And that's when you would get every now and then get proper waves. But often we'd spend, you know, 4.5 hours in the car checking different spots and end up back at the spot we first arrived at. And it was just garbage, you know, like it was a pretty frustrating place to grow up as a surfer, but you get by. And there definitely are some good fundamental waves around us, particularly in the local breaks, like some really good turn stuff where you really got to work out speed management and working out how to generate speed, where to spend it, how to spend it without ruining the rest of your ride. So that part was good. You know, it's that Kelly Slater syndrome growing up in Florida. How the heck did he get so good? So yeah, there was a little bit of that going on, but in the end, I think a lot of surfers, they end up moving east because there's just so many more waves and it's so much more consistent and it's so much more accessible.
Wow. That makes sense.
Yeah, I remember I took a trip to South Australia one time and I was in Adelaide for a little bit. And I remember looking up a surf forecast. I think it was for Kangaroo Island. And it was pumping. And I remember then looking and reading about the spot and how remote it seemed to me. And gnarly was a great word for it. And just reading about it and looking at the forecast, I was so intimidated. It's like, man, that seems like the wilderness out there to me. Yeah.
It's like we describe it as Indonesia, but with sharks and wetsuits and no one around.
Yeah, that would be, I've never surfed Indonesia. It's on my bucket list of places, but yeah. And we're not talking like Florida sharks there either.
No,
right?
These are great whites. These are man-eaters.
Yeah, they're not like little reef tips.
No, I had a friend actually, and this is, it almost ended up being part of the reason why we moved, although it was probably more career and surf focused in the end. My friend was out surfing out west in the desert, and he was surfing with another guy that he knew, and the guy got attacked by a great white behind him, and all of a sudden he was paddling out and he looked behind him, and the guy screamed out shark, and he turned around, and my friend's friend was in the shark's mouth. Like this shark was literally eating him. So he turned around and paddled towards him, and the shark let him go, and he was trying to put him back, and then the shark came back, and it actually ended up, taking his leg, and taking the leg with the leg rope. So the shark had swallowed the leg with the leg rope, and it was bobbing around them as he was like trying to put him on his back and take him into shore. And he was clinically dead for 45 minutes. They were in the desert, right? And then he ended up surviving, like this miracle story. And my friend received a Victoria Cross, like a very prestigious bravery award and all this sort of stuff. But in the end, just through osmosis, like just through that experience of watching him go through that and how it affected him, and how much we love surfing and what we go through, it kind of just, it made me go like, I don't know if my heart's really in it here in South Australia. I'm sure, again, it's that whole thing of the risk is so low, but there is a risk. And yeah, I just feel a lot safer up here. But I don't know if you guys are on top of it, but like just up north, maybe an hour and a half, a couple of hours from here, the shark season has been terrible. There's been 3 deaths already this year. So it's already looking like it's going to be a really bad season. But this is just part and parcel with surfing, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
We're definitely used to the shark stories because the beach that we were talking about before before we started the podcast is New Smyrna Beach, and it's named famously the shark bite capital of the world. But the sharks are like, no more than 6 feet or 4 feet, so small bites. A lot of them, but people never. I mean, I don't think they've had a death. Maybe a death. Maybe
they're extremely rare if they occur at all. Yeah.
But frequent. That's crazy. And 130% that guy earned everything he did. I mean, paddling in with someone that's got to be so traumatic for anyone. I mean,
yeah, and more. They had to carry him up a cliff and tourniquet his leg and drive him to meet the ambulance, and it was crazy. Yeah,
that's crazy, man. Yeah, I would. That would. Now, where you're surfing now, there's probably sharks, but you're probably much.
Yeah, we see sharks. Like, you see little ones. Just the other day, just down here, someone was surfing, and then there was someone walking, and there was a person walking up on the hill, and they were like super. Like waving at this guy who was surfing, and he was kind of like, "Hi, how's it going?" And they were freaking out. He's like, "That's so weird." And then the person ended up running down. It took them about 20 minutes to run down, and they said there was a shark circling you for like half an hour.
Wow.
Yeah. So it just happens, and often we don't know. But certainly in Sydney, there haven't been attacks for a long time.
Yeah, and I think the statistic is you're like 4.5 times more likely to get killed on the way to the beach by a car accident than you would ever be a shark. So anyone who's listening who's now like, I'm definitely not surfing, don't worry about it. But yeah, so that's an interesting start to surfing because you went through the traditional, I guess, like what we would call like schooling fitness sports and stuff like that, and then found your passion. So you also have another passion for like writing and film and that whole genre. When did that creative process begin for you?
Yeah, I mean, I felt like that was pretty early. I've been obsessed with movies, obsessed with movies and stories, books and that sort of stuff since I was 5. I remember watching Shrek about 30 times. And I knew and it's still weird because if I see it on the TV now, I can almost follow the script verbatim. Like it's crazy how embedded that film is in my brain. And that sort of drew me towards, initially I wanted to be a journalist, and I got into that when I was 16. I started writing at the local surf competitions and doing that sort of stuff. And then from there, I did the work experience thing. And then I ended up traveling in a van. So not a van this nice, but I was in a very old Toyota Hi-Ace. And I was like, as soon as I finish school, I'm out of here. This is in Adelaide. And I traveled up the East Coast and lived in a van surfing and just writing. And I kept a journal, and I've never posted or published anything from the journal. and, you know, that was kind of my walkabout in Australia. I have mixed heritage. So I have European heritage and I have some Indigenous heritage as well. But walkabout is basically what a sort of transition to manhood for people in Indigenous culture, where they would go away for 12 months or whatever on their own on walkabout to sort of work out who they want to be, who they are, their role in the world and that sort of thing. So that was my version of that. And it was very formative, that sort of experience to be in the van. And I had, as I said, I did really well in school. I was Dux my school, which is the sort of top of the school. And I got into journalism, international studies, and I was going to go, but then I got a phone call from a TV network in Adelaide, and they said, "Hey, we've seen your stuff on this surfing channel, this surfing podcast that you guys were doing, that I was doing for Surfing South Australia. Do you want a job as a TV reporter?" And I was like, "Sure, I'll have a job. I don't want to go to uni. Like, that's fine." So I ended up training on the job and became a journalist there. And then that whole time, I had been in a way suppressing the more creative stuff, like theater and film and acting and that sort of stuff, because I don't know why. It was just sort of, I grew up in a very, I was born in Port Augusta, which is like the most quintessential. You think of an Aussie stereotypical country town, that's it, right? It's very interesting. You say you want to be an actor in Port Augusta? No, that's not going to go down. Like it's pretty crazy. So like that sort of thing, I kind of, I guess, ignored for a long time. And then it was only in the last sort of, I guess, 8 or 9 years that I'd sort of allowed that to come through to fruition and really get into film and storytelling, both fictional and nonfiction. So yeah, that's where the documentaries came from. That was just an extension of the writing and the speaking that I had done in the health and wellness space. Because when I was 16, it is quite multifaceted, isn't it? When I was 16, I was diagnosed with a heart condition called supraventricular tachycardia. So this would see the SVT. It would see me experiencing arrhythmias quite a lot. Even when I was out surfing, I would almost faint in the surf sometimes. Like, it was pretty bad. So I went to a cardiologist. The cardiologist said, "Hey, you've got to have an ablation," which is where we want to enter your heart and burn away a piece of the heart. They wanted to burn the sinoatrial node. And I was like, "No, why? Why do you want to do that? Why can't we just fix it?" Like, I can't. My whole reason for that was I just wanted to keep surfing. There was no way I was spending 4 weeks out the water, having surgery. So I actually got introduced to a naturopath at that point because I was a vegetarian. I thought that was the best way to be. And she taught me some really basic health principles and sort of sparked that journey. I ended up sort of mentoring under her for about 8 years, sitting in on consults and stuff with her. For a time, I thought I wanted to be a clinician or something, but I ended up sort of going more the investigative journalistic route and sort of bridging that gap between the practitioner and the everyday consumer. And it turned out there was a big market there, and the gut stuff really took off. So I did a couple of gut books and a lot of workshops and speaking, and then that turned into the gut movie, the film, and then we just wrapped up the longevity film as well. And now, with all the surfing stuff taking off, that's sort of taking over. But on another creative level, we're still pursuing and developing some more fictional narratives to tell as well. So I guess it's always been there, but it's more, I've had to create space for it to come through, because there's always been something else to do, and I guess that's everyone's excuse, right? It just comes down to priorities. But now that I really feel like it has to be a priority, because I've sort of sorted myself out in terms of income, in terms of covering the bases. I've got this beautiful home on wheels. Like, there's no excuse now to keep putting it off.
And so I would like to, I want to take it back to that diagnosis, let's say at age 16, because that's sort of a confluence of a lot of things that we like to talk about on this podcast. Like, you found your passion then for surfing, and then you encountered this hardship that was going to prevent you from doing it for an extended period of time. So you stayed motivated to stay true to that passion and sort of overcome that adversity. I'm curious what that process looked like for you at age 16. You mentioned it involved some big dietary changes and studying under a clinician or an expert in that field. I was hoping you could tell us more about what that looked like for you.
Yeah. So I remember sitting across the desk from the cardiologist, and he said, "All right, we've got to do this ablation. Like, when can I book you in?" kind of thing. It was like, oh, it's like, whoa. It's like, calm your farm. And I ended up saying like, "Oh, well, why can't we just fix it?" I said, "What about nutrition?" Because again, I was a vegetarian at that time. I was 16, so I knew everything there was to know about the world. And I was like, no, like surely there must be a different way. And he's like, no, this is the only way that we can maybe fix it. And we actually knew a person, like a family friend, who had a similar thing, had that procedure done numerous times, and it still didn't work. And I was like, no, I can clearly see that path of going down that medical path and bouncing in and out of surgery and working out what all these different things. I thought, no, there has to be a better way. So again, sort of going with that mindset and then sharing that mindset with people around me. I naturally got introduced to a naturopath who was working in the local area, who was a naturopath of 40 years. And I say naturopath, but she was so much more. She was so well researched, like so well studied. I would say I would come to these meetings and I was obsessed with, at this point, with health and wellbeing. And I was like reading all this stuff. I'd come and be like, did you see that study that talked about like, you know, micro amounts of vitamin C being produced by the microbiota? She's like, yeah, I saw that. And, you know, she would be so on top of it. So she taught me some incredible stuff, and most of it was basic. Most of it was the basic stuff. Like, hey, what are you eating? Did it run around once? Did it grow on the ground once? And have they done much to it since? Like just really basic sort of stuff like that. What are you missing from the diet? What can we supplement? What do people need to supplement in general, you know, to get the body working? Because once you give it the right raw materials, it knows what to do in most cases. So yeah, it was just a few of those things. And over time, I built up a lot of confidence in that space. Like, okay, this is how the body works. And you know, it's an overall, when it comes down to it, it's not that complicated. Although we still need to know a lot more, it really does come down to great food. And then I've sort of discovered over the next 5 or 6 or actually 10 years of working in that industry that it's also, you know, great movement, great community, and a great mindset as well, if you really want to package it all together. So yeah, it was a long journey, but I was able to turn around that heart condition in about 6 to 18 months. I really got it under control.
Wow. It's pretty mature for a 16-year-old to have that kind of conversation with a doctor. I mean, honestly, I don't think I was like that at 16. If they would have said, you need to do the surgery, I would have probably been like, you're a doctor. Makes sense. Let's do it. That's really, it shows a lot of your character in that moment itself. It's pretty cool.
Thank you. I mean, I think, and that's persisted. I do worry that people suffer from white coat syndrome. We deify anyone who's got a degree, and if you look at history, it's a very true indicator of, you know, of human nature. A lot of people in white coats got it wrong. You know, doctors killed women and children for a long time because they refused to wash their hands when they were delivering babies. You know, it's incredible. There's an incredibly long and deep history there. And there were lots of doctors during that time who were like, no, please wash your hands, you know. So people are fallible, you know, and we can question anyone.
Yeah, no, that is a great thing to do. It only makes you better because at the end of it, you're making an educated and correct decision that you truly stand behind. So that's really interesting that you stood up for it. And so now, does it affect you today?
No, there have been, you know, I can count on 1 or 2 hands that the instances in the last 5-6 years that have sort of happened, and I'm in a much better position now to deal with it. All I have to do, like literally, if I do have any heart episodes, all I have to do is come in and lie down and they're gone. So it's pretty nice. Whereas previously when I was younger, I would experience them and some of them lasted for like an hour or 2 hours, 3 hours. Like it was pretty bad, like shortness of breath, and I couldn't feel my hands and that sort of stuff. So it was pretty intense at times. So now it's definitely, it's going to be something that I have to manage for the rest of my life. And I'm not opposed to that. It was a great gift, really. It started this path for me, you know, but by watching my diet and watching how I live and all the rest of it, I can manage it very easily and without it impacting my life.
That's awesome. That's really.
What were some specific changes that you really noticed making a difference during that initial period, that initial 12 to 18 month period? Like what started making tangible progress for you?
It was switching up my carbohydrate sources from grains to vegetables. It was the biggest thing. And I even now, like if I go and even have like a gluten-free grain, like a health cereal and blah, blah, blah. If I have that stuff, I know I'm putting pressure on my heart, you know, and I can tie in those instances quite cleanly with that sort of dietary intake. So I don't know whether that's true for everyone, but I learned pretty early on that when you raise your blood sugar, you put the heart under stress to an extent, and grains are quite good at raising the blood sugar. Grains aren't evil. But for me, it definitely was putting my heart under pressure, and just to re-alkalize the system and reoxygenate the system. It sort of tripped. It was like a wire just tripping in my heart. You know, it was affected electrically by that.
Wow.
It sounds like you've acquired some mindfulness techniques too to approach that. And that's something that I find very interesting, is that the breath and the heartbeat are something that are automatically going on no matter what, but they're also something that you can sort of control if you do have that physical awareness and physical mindfulness to approach it, to go
Yeah.
lay down when you feel that coming on, for example, or to take deep
Yeah.
breaths.
Yeah, I mean, I can take as many deep breaths as I like out in the water. If it wants to stay, it'll stay. And that's why just coming in and lying down is one of the best thing for me. But yeah, I mean, taking a meditative and mindful approach to life in general, I think now is incredibly important. And that's something I've probably learned a lot more doing the longevity film, instead of this die-hard pursuit of the micro details of attaining this supercharged health and wellness. I was like excluding some serious aspects and components of what true health and well-being is. So yeah, just being calm and considered, and thinking about why you do what you do throughout the day, I think has a tremendous impact on your health in general.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a huge thing that I would love to talk about. But I'm curious about more, to start off with, to start that conversation, more how you got the inspiration to go into those films. It sounds like the inspiration is sort of through some personal experiences, but you did a lot of traveling with that. You put a lot of effort into those films. What sparked your interest in actually making that a huge project like that?
Yeah, I mean, the Gut movie was an extension of the work that I was already doing, which was great because I was so lucky in that I adopted that position in Australia of being the middleman between the practitioners and the consumer. So I used to get invited to speak on stages alongside professors and doctors and incredible practitioners. Like, it was like I was a little intruder. I used to look around going, I don't know how this is happening, but I'm here speaking on stage with these people. And then I would get to interview them, and I would get to, one of them wanted me to write their book for them, and I was like, no, that's a bit too much, So I had this credibility in the space. So I had access to all these amazing practitioners. One of the guys, Professor Thomas Barodi, he's the guy who really pioneered fecal microbiota transplantations. So, poo transplants around the world, and with incredible success. So yeah, he's a guy who's just in Sydney, and all of a sudden I had access to him. So it was like, okay, there's a movie here, there's a documentary here, there's this obsession at that time. There was this obsession with microbiome, anything gut related, and it was like, what do we do? There was so much angst. I used to speak at these events, and people would come up to me like, oh, so should I have sweet potato before I have a sausage, or should I have it after? Like, it was just weird questions, and I was like, no, we're making this way too complex. So I did that film, and I was like, okay, how can we make it scientific? And it was like, okay, I'll test my own microbiome and see how it changes when I go and live with a hunter-gatherer tribe in the middle of Namibia. And hopefully while I'm there, there's a swell at Skeleton Bay, and I can go and hit that up, which I did, by the way.
I'm glad.
Which was super fun. So, that was kind of, at that stage, I had already written the gut healing protocol. I'd already written the probiotic nutrition book, which was just a recipe book on fermented foods. I had already done the gut summits, and we raised a bunch of money with the gut summit and just put it all into the film. And that film went nuts. Like, we sold out like 70 shows like in a row. Like, it was pretty nuts around Australia. And that's when I probably got a little bit overconfident, and then pretty much put all that money into the next film and did the same thing. And then COVID hit and all that stuff. But we ended up doing quite well out of the longevity films as well. But the stress of self-funding and producing your own films, it's quite intense. And it was too much in the end.
You're not just self-funding and doing that. You're also the director, the producer, the writer of all of it. It's funny to look at all the credit of what it is. It's like everything is you. So you don't give yourself enough credit to do that. You're doing everything for this, and it's gotta be very stressful.
It is in the times. Yeah, especially the last one. Like, my health just declined when I went to California for the the middle part of the longevity film, we were visiting the Loma Linda community in Loma Linda. It's a blue zone, one of the healthiest communities in the world. It's the Seventh-day Adventist community. And I arrived and I felt disgusting. I felt so awful. And I just looked at my camera guy, and I had paid for, I just was watching my budget just go bang, 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 like everywhere. Like all these allocations just going out the door. And I was like, I can't do this anymore. Like, I'm done. Like, after this trip, I'm done. So from there, I went to Greece. And again, this is all sounding amazing, right? But you're not on holiday, like you are working. And from there, I went to Greece, and I went to Ikaria, which is a blue zone again. And it's a quintessential blue zone, like a beautiful Mediterranean experience. And I finally slowed down in Ikaria. And it was like, since then, I've not had any sort of respiratory issue, which is generally my weak point. Is I tend to get a little flu once or twice a year. I haven't been sick since visiting Ikaria, and really brought that home. And since then, the longevity film was the things that I learned during that film have totally directed my life to the point where we're now living in a van and trying to slow things down a little bit. We're still getting there, but yeah.
So how cool is it to you that you are a lover of film, right? You love any movie from Shrek to probably every documentary that you've ever watched, to now be known as someone who has directed, written, and produced 2 films. Like, you have 2 to your name. Like, that's got to be pretty neat.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think about it that much, to be honest. No.
Was it ever a goal of yours, when you were watching film? Was it like, hey, I'd love to do something like this? Or did it just kind of happen in your head?
A lot of my obsession early was with documentaries and with social impact documentaries. I remember watching An Inconvenient Truth and feeling like so inspired by Al Gore's work. And I'd probably feel a little bit differently about watching that now. But and I remember watching Food Matters, one of the original, it was like the OG health doco, right? That first broke out discussions about raw food and all this sort of, quite esoteric health aspects. And that was when I was quite obsessed with. But now I'm much more interested in fictional stories, and I feel much more inspired by watching a great film. Guy Ritchie and Damien Chazelle, two of my favorite directors. I watch their stuff, and that's what I'm feeling most inspired about. And naturally, that's the sort of work that I'm now chasing. And I guess I don't know if I don't think this is the thing with being a creative person. I don't think you ever sit back and go, wow, look at this body of work that I've just produced. There's like a moment of that after you finish the editing process, and you go, wow, look at this sculpture that we just made. And then you go, okay, next project. And you kind of move on. So I think that's just going to be an endless pursuit. And as long as I can find presence and mindfulness in this journey and appreciate the steps to get to the end outcome of a finished film, then I think I'm winning.
It definitely, I can understand that creative process, because I think other people we've talked to have said the same thing. Is like, once you finish a project, you just have so many thoughts in your head. And it kind of relates to the YouTube channel. I'm sure the channel itself, you probably are struggling with the amount of thoughts that you can put onto the channel and how to categorize that. And has the I would say, like, traditional structure of creating a film helped you improve the channel itself?
I think so. I mean, having skills in presenting, editing, and how to structure a story in terms of, actually trying to implant an arc of some sort in each clip. Not that it always gets there or is tangibly visible. For sure, it was always going to help, from learning how to manage footage and folders and the logistics of that, which is a huge part of the editing process, to working out the lighting on where to present something and when to present something. I'm not going to go out and film in the middle of the day because the lighting's going to be disgusting. Or if I film first thing in the morning, it's going to be nice and soft and glowy and and whatever. So yeah, that sort of stuff is definitely helpful. But you know, I'll put in like so much effort into a clip and it'll get 20,000 views, and then I'll do a little dodgy job and I'm like, oh quick, I got to get this together, and it'll get like 500,000 views, you know. So it's YouTube's this weird beast that just takes on a mind of its own, which is fine. It's sort of quite humbling in a way. But no, it's been an interesting sort of transition, and I love it. I truly do, but it's not going to be my main. It's never going to be my main career. I love it, and I love the fact that I get to surf for a living now. In between all these big projects, but surfing's always going to be the in between. You know, the big projects are always going to be my main focus.
So what was rather than chasing the main focuses, what was the thought process of like, why should I start this YouTube channel? And so you started it 7 years ago, uploading videos kind of all over the board, in the sense of the first probably 20 videos that you put up there. Now you kind of have a structure and you can see there's a progression, and it looks much cleaner. And I think that's common on almost every channel. But what was the thought process of like, I want to start putting videos on this? I mean, 2013 YouTube was much different than 2020 YouTube.
Yeah, I mean, I started off like this, like recording interviews with practitioners and health experts around the world and just uploading that. And I was like, someone told me like, put it on YouTube, so people will see it. And I was like, okay, you know, it wasn't an intentional sort of thing. I never looked at my YouTube, like all that sort of stuff. So I only started doing surfing videos 9 months ago on this channel. I started obviously How to Rip a long time ago, and that had sort of run its course and was sort of a little bit sticky because my partner's in Adelaide still, and we couldn't really sort of come together and film very often. So it was like, you know, what do I do, especially with the world sort of shutting down and you know, doing all this sort of stuff. I can't travel anymore. So I was like, okay, I think, you know, surfing's at a point now where I feel comfortable with turning it into a vocation. And I was always a little bit nervous because I didn't want to taint the purity of surfing with tying with an income, you know, and I kept getting all these requests for coaching and all this sort of stuff. Like people wanted to come and be coached. And I was like, oh, you know, like I kind of was interested. And because it was such good money, like it's, you know, it's quite good money. And I was like, oh, whatever, let's just do it. And then that sort of built up, and I ended up kind of enjoying it and putting together the analysis clips, especially when people made progression leaps. And I felt like if I watched them get a good wave, I'd get tingles. I'd be like, yes, oh my God, I feel so good. So that was kind of addictive in a way. And I wanted to share that online and really break it down and share also the beautiful imagery. Like I could make a lot more money and get a lot more subscribers by filming every single surf session every day, you know, but I don't want to do that because this is so special to me. Like I feel like if I had a GoPro in my mouth this morning, I wouldn't have enjoyed it as much, you know. So there's definitely some give and take and some compromises, but the intention is just to build it into a bigger version of what it is now. And there'll always be tutorials, but now, especially with the van, I will start going back to exploring life a little bit more through video, you know, and contemplating and uploading maybe a 7 or 8 minute soliloquy on a Sunday morning that just cause with nice drone footage and some van life footage, you know. It's almost like the trajectory of a lot of YouTubers is to do your how-tos and do your how-to videos and build a big audience. And then that's when you can branch off a little bit. So I guess I'm sort of following that in a way, while still trying to deliver what people want. Like it's so funny, the effrontery of some of these some of the people that watch the channel. They're like, hi, no, I don't like this video. Can you upload another one? Like it's kind of like they just take ownership of what you're uploading. I'll get messages on Instagram, like just I got one this morning. Someone just sent me like 3 or 4 clips of them surfing saying, how can I improve? You know, it's just like, come on, like just show me a little bit of respect. You know, respect my time just a little bit, please. So yeah, just trying to like serve everybody, but realizing that's never going to happen. And yeah, just see where it goes. We'll see.
So with that being said, when you post a video or you post an Instagram clip, how engaged are you with your community? Like, are you responding to comments to the first, you know, 2 hours, 4 hours, 6 hours? What does that look like for you?
On YouTube, I'm pretty good. I feel like for the most part, I try to respond to everything because I know it feels good when you get like if someone's going to take time out of their day to leave a nice comment for me, I feel like I should take some time out of my day to say thanks. You know, it's pretty basic. If someone, I get a lot of not trolls, but I get a lot of funny sort of salty surfer comments as well, and they're the funny ones. Like if it's too rude and it's too crass, and I just don't want other people to see it and sort of feel a bit weird about it, I'll delete them. But if it's quite clear that the person is just like lost their marbles a little bit, I'll sort of play with it a little bit, and I'll screenshot it and upload it to Instagram because I think that's funny. And on Instagram, I'm probably a little bit more engaged. Like everyone, I use that a lot more. But you know, I'm quite a fan of, I delete the app after I use it in the morning, and then I might use it later on in the day and then delete it again. Because if it's there, it's like almond butter. If it's there, you're going to eat it.
Yeah. It's funny that you post the like mean comments to Instagram, because we were talking to another guy, Cam Nichols, and he's like, at a point, you're going to get negative comments. You're going to get people, but I might as well have fun with it and get the people who are engaging in a positive way with me to also laugh about it. And I love that thought process. So that's awesome.
It's funny. It's some of them are actually really funny. I mean, if you look back at them, and I've always found that sort of those awkward situations, those cringe situations quite funny. There's a lot of it going on at the moment, isn't it? It's just a strange world at the moment where people are so different in front of a keyboard than they would be in real life. Like you would never say that stuff to someone in real life, you know, or the stuff you say behind your wheel to other people, to other drivers, you would never say that if you're looking at them in the face. So just pointing that out in subtle ways, and pointing out not the stupidity, but I guess the uninformed position that a lot of people take with this stuff. They'll be like, nah, too many ads. I'm like, oh, sorry, would you like a refund for this free video? But, you know, just little things like that. You just have to point out the idiosyncrasies in what they're saying. And I think, you know, most people, I would see them in the surf, and if someone said, oh, I actually left a bad comment for you, I don't like it, I'd be like, that's cool, bro. It's great. Enjoy your surf. Like, it's not a big deal. So, yeah.
That's one great way to look at it too. And yeah, I think right now especially, so many people are stuck behind a keyboard for much longer than they are used to. You know, they're at home more than they're not getting out. Maybe they're not taking the opportunity to go surf or go on a run or do something. They're stuck inside playing a video game, which only brings that whole talking of nonsense to other people through the internet up in their life. So then they get a little bit more bold on Instagram or YouTube.
Well, you got to remember as well, like a lot of these people don't really realize, it's like the movie Chef, when he posts that he thinks he's replying personally to the critic, the food critic, but he's doing it publicly. It's like that sort of stuff. Like a lot of old salty surfers, they're around here, you know, this is a localized area. People are grumpy, you know, they're salty. They still love surfing, but they want to surf alone, and they get angry when there's too many people and that sort of stuff. I get it. Surfing's like a selfish sport, and I do appreciate localism in a big way if it's done nicely, if it's done kindly. You put those people in front of a keyboard and they watch the wave pool. Like, you know how many negative comments I got on the wave pool in Melbourne? That was the fun. It's like Disneyland for surfing. There's always going to be some surfer who's out there like, ankle slapping garbage. Forget about it. And it's like, are you having a bad day, sir? Come on, just let people have their fun. You know?
And do you see when you get picked up? So you were talking about kind of some videos get 20,000, some videos get 500,000. Do you see that negativity creep in more as the algorithm of YouTube starts to project your video, where people outside of your subscriber base are now popping in, and that's kind of what maybe brings in some negativity? Or is it you just have salty guys who are typically going to get on there?
Oh yeah. If a video goes viral, that's when you get it, you know, which it's a part and parcel with it. It's like surfing, and there's going to be sharks, and there's going to be blue bottles in summer, and they're going to sting, and it's going to be like you've been kicked in the balls, and it's going to ache, and you got to go home, and you just got to deal with it. It's part and parcel. It's the way it goes. Yeah,
absolutely. And I think that just makes sense. You know, you're getting outside of the people who subscribe to you are subscribing for you. And then once you get outside of that, they're like, this guy's not, I don't know, whoever I was watching on my surfing channel like 2 hours ago. What the heck? And You know, maybe
Yeah.
they were watching something else and then they're like, a wave pool? That's stupid. Which I totally disagree. I would love to surf a wave pool. You're gonna have
Honestly, wave pools are gonna just change the game in terms of helping everybody progress in a faster way. Like it's a
Yeah.
controlled environment. You don't get that with surfing unless you're in a
Mhm.
wave pool. So, and that's why we just did you know, excuse this shameless plug. That's why we just released the Surf Skate program, is because it's a way to control the variables. And it's like, okay, I'm going to set up these cones and I'm going to go through my top turn or roundhouse or bottom turn again and again and again and again. So that you are set up for when the waves finally do cooperate. Like here, I've been thinking about, I said the other day, before a week ago, winter's not great for airs here in Sydney, especially. It's pretty garbage, to be honest. And I get frustrated because one of the my favorite things about surfing is having a session where you're doing airs like every wave. Before 2 months ago, before a week ago, I hadn't done an air for like 2 months, you know, and in what other sport does that happen? It's like rocking up to the gym and going, I'm going to do deadlifts today. Oh, they've taken all the weights away. You know, it's like it's such a weird situation. So that's why I think, you know, those controlled environments of surfing are so good for progression, not necessarily for entertainment. I mean, we all watched the wave pool event and it was kind of ended up getting a little bit grey and stale, which is whatever. But yeah, for progression and for the future of surfing, look at Jackson Dorian.
I was just thinking that.
What a freak! Like, I mean, you spend a few months in Texas, that happens.
And there's going to be this whole factor of like he's got that whole mixture of not just being the wave pool kid, but he's also out surfing great breaks throughout the world, and everything he puts together, like the fundamentals. And I actually have here on the note the skate progression. I think it's a great on land transfer, and it goes to the roots of skateboarding, how it started, and you're bringing that back to like the sport itself and reintroducing it. And it's the same concept of a wave pool, truly, in my mind. You're bringing all the fundamentals and putting it full force in front of someone, and then right when they hit, they're going to know what it is. It's nothing different than a professional athlete does. I got to be honest, I really don't know anything about Aussie rules football, but you know, so like if you're a soccer player, you're going to go kick a ball towards a goal. If you're a football player, you're going to go throw a ball. And then every time you do that, when you get into a game or a scenario, you understand exactly what you're doing. You don't have to think about it. It's the same thing you're trying to put into the fundamentals there. It'll be interesting to see what Jackson Dorian looks like when he's 19 years old, because John is the same way. John is like, you put him in any wave, he grew up at Pipe, like with every person around him teaching him everything that he was doing, and he's doing all the same fundamentals, getting out of the water. And he had a photographer with him since he was probably 13, and going through the footage and saying, oh, you could have fixed this air here. Here's where you missed, kind of pushing some more speed. And he's getting coached the whole time. It's interesting. I'm excited to see. We were talking literally with another guy about Jackson at the Waco pool, and it just the same thing. Who knows what that will bring.
It's amazing how it's going to progress. And I mean, that's extreme sports, isn't it? It's I guess, again, in most extreme sports have that controlled environment factor. Snowboarding, I guess the snow changes, but not while you're there. You kind of, I think, it's just there, and you do your thing. You pick your line and you do your thing. Skate park doesn't morph and change. So, yeah, it's one of those things that we'll all benefit from, because the entertainment factor is going to go through the roof.
Yeah. I mean, it already is. Like, it's just, and there's so many wave pools that are popping up everywhere, and everyone's behind them. It's just, they're going to get crazy cool. I'm excited for that. So when we're starting the channel, right, you're growing it to get to the first 1,000 subscribers. What's that like? What's the journey to grow the channel, and how does it feel as you grow? Because there's got to be like an ebb and flow, right? It's like any kind of social media. You have a following that grows, and you're always kind of gaining and like kind of losing in a way. So how do you always continue to move it forward?
Yeah, I mean, I use my running tally of monthly subscribers. So YouTube, the analytics thing gives you like a subscribers in the last 28 days number. So that's like my running tally for how the channel's going. And it's so strange. I didn't upload for like 5 weeks just now because we've been focused on the van and I've had a whole bunch of pre-production stuff for something else. And I couldn't upload. And it was weird because America went into summer and most of my viewers on YouTube are in America. If the channel, the number kept going up and up and up and up and up. Like it was weird, and I hadn't been uploading. So you see that with certain videos. But when I posted, for instance, I did the Carver versus Smooth Star video, the surf skates. It's on that trend. That I got a massive boost from that. And it's not been my most popular video, but the subscribership went sort of through the roof when that happened. Similar to when I did that video in San Clemente when I was down there in SoCal, the Surfers Roadmap. I think the first one that's got 500,000 views. That one has continued and goes in big waves. It kind of keeps going on that upward trajectory. So yeah, it's nice because they're almost like little investments each video. Some of them won't pay off, and to the point where I've paid a videographer for a day. I'm like, let's do this really cool video. And it's like, $200, $250 to pay the videographer or whatever. And then the video goes on and makes like $50, and it's kind of like, oh, okay. So you sort of got to negate that with other videos and work out what's going to work. But again, over time, like I look at the Surfers Roadmap video that I shot in San Clemente, that video itself has probably made, I don't know, actually maybe 6 or 7 grand, since the start of the year. So that's just one video, and I did that for free. Like I filmed the whole thing. So you weigh it up, and definitely not every video is going to go that well. But yeah, they're all little investments, and some of them pay off, and some of them don't, and some of them keep recurring as well, which is great.
How important? So for you, as you've grown, how important is that data? Are you looking at that data to make decisions on what video to release? Or is it more so like you have a passion for this, you're trying to release a series? How does that process go, the creative process of the next video that you want to put out?
I created a rule really early on that I was only going to make content for me. Just because if I'm always trying to please everyone and I'm trying to make content to suit an algorithm or, solve everybody's issues, I'm always going to lose. I'm always going to be chasing my tail and always going to be at the mercy of everybody else. If I make stuff that pleases me and would have helped me back, when I was surfing, then I think that's how I'm going to win. Now, granted, there are some themes which definitely have been audience driven, like the surf skate stuff. Like when I posted a few videos, I posted some videos last year when we sort of working with Smooth Star, the Australian version of Carver, if you will. I think they're better boards. When we were working with them, it was kind of like a per video basis. So I've been working with them for a while, and they sort of said like, oh, we think a video on this would be cool. What do you think? And then, after I did the last one, they didn't know I was doing the comparison video, and they were kind of nervous because they didn't want to sort of offend anyone. And I was like, well, we're not, you and I aren't the same brand. Like, just give me a board and I want to go and compare it to a Carver. Anyway, I did that video, and that sort of took off. And that now I've obviously sort of been in negotiations with them and starting to look at a contract and all that sort of stuff. So and from those first videos, sorry, I digress a little bit. From those first videos, that was when people were like, can we please have more of this surf skate stuff? Like, the surf's flat here for 3 months, wherever they are in the world, or I live in inland, I'm 2 hours inland. Like, I want to be able to surf every day and get those movements in every day. So that was like a huge unknown. I didn't realize how many people would love that. So that's what's sort of driven it. And granted, when I coach people and I get them on the surf skates now, Smooth Star gave me a bunch of surf skates to use with clients. They progress so fast, so it was like I saw what was effective and then thought, okay, even though this isn't my jam, like I don't sit back and go, man, I can't wait to make a surf skate video tomorrow. Like, it's just, it's cool, but it's not super exciting. It's more audience driven and also outcome driven. Like, people really do benefit from that sort of stuff. But yeah, going back to what I said before, all my content, all my books, all my films, they've all been for me. Like, any creative decision in the editing suite or on the road, it's always been like, what do I think? What do I enjoy?
I think that makes total sense, especially from the stories that we started with, right? You were given a medical result, and that brought you into learning about your body and the gut, which then got you down that whole path. And that was all because you got interested and loved it. And I can see that you fell in love with coaching. And it's weird that you were talking about, the past 9 months, because I was looking through the channel, and when you look through it, that's really where the channel growth on every video happened. And it seems like the focus came in. You got an underlying theme that you were passionate about, which is the coaching side of it, and that really is what has driven the channel. Huge growth in what 9 months?
Yeah, it went from 1,000 subscribers to 55.
Crazy. How does that feel when you hit 50? Was it just like surreal?
No, it was just whatever.
Other day.
Yeah, it's cool. But again, it's not the focus. 100,000 subscribers, I'm sure I'll maybe take a beat and go, oh, that's pretty cool. Yeah. But it's not, I don't know. It's just social media, it's strange. And I make more money from my own channel with 55,000 subscribers than I do from the other surfing channel with 105,000 subscribers, so it's not, and money's not the outcome, but definitely starting this channel, it's driven me in a certain direction lifestyle wise, that I'm very grateful for. So maybe if 100,000 subscribers, pushes me more in that direction and says like, when I'm releasing this van series, so the van that I'm in, I'm happy to show you guys. I'll give you a little taster. That's all I'm going to show for now. The van that I'm in, we renovated this from an old disability services vehicle, and I'm turning that into a series. And again, I don't really have any business uploading van life videos to YouTube, right? I should, if I was a businessman, I'd just go, what's working? Surfing, stick with that. But I want to do this. This is what I want to do. So I'm going to turn this into a series and upload that. So if that sort of takes off, then that will obviously direct things in a certain way as well. But for me, if I can continue to blur the lines between work and play, then I think I'm going to be pretty happy regardless of the amount of subscribers that I have.
It kind of seems to me like you picked up some interesting insights on how lifestyle and well-being are connected from your travels to the Blue Zone areas. And especially that seems like with the recent change going into van life, what was it that you learned from them that sparked such huge lifestyle changes in you?
Oh, the biggest thing, the absolute biggest thing, the most tangible thing was the community aspect. Like, I was the guy sitting alone in the corner drinking a green smoothie while my friends sat at the bar having a beer. Like, that's what I was doing for a long time. And I thought like I was better. I was judging them. I was like, they're not going to live as long as me. Look at me with my green smoothie. And that's what I realized. I was probably not doing myself any favors being in that situation, and maybe not literally that situation all the time, but figuratively speaking, that sort of situation. So in the Blue Zones, people they're totally connected with their community. They're interdependent. They also look after each other, and that for me was quite a novel idea, because I'd always been this since leaving the TV network back in the day, I'd always been this solopreneur, whatever you want to call it, like always calling my own shots and doing this thing and sort of worrying about myself and all that sort of stuff. I was like, okay, do I need to actually step back a little bit and start actually opening myself up to more authentic community connection? And that took a while, and that was a big part of the last whatever it was, year since doing that film, really being cognizant of creating those community connections and building them into my life. Like, here, parked in the van, I'm not alone. Like, I had a surf this morning with like 4 guys who I still struggle to remember their names, but I see them every single day and we have chats every single day. Like, that's now my community here at the beach, and they'll walk down and they'll, pop over to the van and say, hey, and say, what's up? Like, that's now it's my community. And I appreciate that now a lot more. Those experiences to me are as important as the green smoothie that I have in the morning, if I choose to have a green smoothie in the morning. So that's been the biggest change for me. And then the mindset stuff as well. And just trying to be calm and not meditate more, but be more meditative in how I live, and be more calm and considered in my approach. And it doesn't always work. If anyone's built a van and done a van, it's not conducive to mindfulness or fun or relaxation. Like, and especially for me being a creative, I'm not a handy person. I can genuinely say that I strongly dislike this kind of work. It's been a struggle. But you know, life happens in seasons as well, and accepting that. I was in Ikaria and I was hanging out with a guy called Ilias who is a local farmer, and he farms on biodynamic principles, right? So they're all organic and we're really looking after the soil. And he will toil in that garden for 12, 14 hours a day. You know, he's got two gardens, two little small scale farms, and he's got goats and all the rest of it, and lots of citrus and all the rest of it. And then he'll go back and he'll cook everyone dinner, all the guests that his wife's in the evening. And, you know, he does it with a smile on his face the whole day. He'll sit back, he'll have a wine, he'll have a coffee in his little man cave. Literally, he's got a man cave, like it's a cave in the side of a hill on his farm. Like, it's incredible. And he'll sit back and he's got grappa in there, which is like, you know, it's like a strong alcohol, right? He's got that in there, and they might sit back and they'll maybe even have a cigarette. Like, these people, I'm like walking through there going, this is weird. Like, they're breaking all the rules, but they're living better and they're living longer than everybody else. So it really made me reflect and go, hey, what am I doing? What are my goals? If my goals are to look as good as I can or be shredded or whatever, then yeah, maybe I need to be really strict with my diet and really strict with my exercise. Those are not my goals. My goals are just to live a long, healthy, happy life, and you know, hopefully one that's in alignment with my highest values. And to do that, I actually need to look after some more areas than just nutrition. You know, I need to look after my movement, my community, my mindset. So yeah, it was just broadening the scope is what I learned during the longevity film. In the gut movie, everything was microscopic. It was microbiome. It was gut health. It was micro. In the longevity film, we zoomed out and saw the broader picture.
Some pretty, the lessons that you learned seem so simple though, like enjoy the moment, but at the same time, it's the opposite of what the world is telling you to do. It's the opposite of, I mean, you made this choice to go into work right after high school, and that in the US, it's like almost foreseen that you don't do that. You have to go to college. You have to get on the path. And it's this wild thing. And you go to college to go out of college with like $150,000 worth of debt or whatever it is, to then get a job that's going to pay you $40,000 a year. So you're going to be in debt for the rest of your life. It's this wild thought, like where the reality is, to be happy, you don't need all these things. Follow something, follow whatever you're passionate about, and you really can live a great life. It's wild.
I think so. I think we all need a certain amount of money. There's that study done that showed that up to about $70,000 or something. I don't know if we can account for currencies and whatever, but I'm sort of paraphrasing. But the study that I saw was up to around $70,000. There's like a correlative increase in happiness, right? But anything above $70,000, there's no correlative increase in happiness, right? So once we actually meet those basic needs of, you know, shelter, feeling safe, feeling secure, looking after our family and all that sort of stuff, which we've chosen through, you know, capitalistic methods to tie in with money, which is fine. I'm a fan of it. Anything above that, it does not increase your happiness. And you look at if you look at celebrity culture, you know, they're not typically the happiest people. The ones who are happy when they're rich were happy before they were rich. Look at Ricky Gervais, for example. You know, he was just your everyday guy up until in his 30s or 40s or whatever it was. And he's still that guy, but he's just got lots of money. So I don't think we put so much weight on our income and our financial status, and I just think it's so unhealthy. If you go somewhere like Hawaii, I've heard is like this, but also you go to Indonesia, and these people earn nothing, but they're so happy. They chill out all day. They go surfing when the tide's good or whatever. They take all the waves. They're just they're beasts in the lineup. It's incredible. But they're incredibly happy, you know. And I think about them now, they're probably earning next to nothing because there'll be hardly any tourists there. But they'd still be frothing. They'd still be surfing every day. They'd be stoked, in fact, because there'd be no crowds in Bali. Yeah. So we just need to shift the goalposts, I think. And it's funny here because this is this extreme affluence around me, right? And we're sort of parked here in our little van, and they're in their, you know, the home behind me is probably worth, I don't know, 12, $15 million. It's crazy sort of stuff. So you see this big disconnect, and I sort of see these people, and I don't know, I can never know, but I do question. I wonder if they're happy. Like, I wonder if they're fulfilled. I wonder if they have great connections with their family, you know, and I think when it comes down to it, those are probably much more important things to consider than the $15 million house on the beach, especially when I can park in front of it in my $70,000 camper van.
Yeah. Yeah. And that truly is like one of Drew and I's goals in this entire process of telling these origin stories, is like, get someone to, maybe like us, we're in 9-to-5 jobs, right? And maybe there's someone out there who hates what they're doing, and they can rearrange their lives to focus on happiness rather than finding money. Now, there has to be some kind of universal flat ground where you still have to take care of everything that you put out there, but be happier rather than just chasing the rabbit hole of the corporate ladder. And every dollar that you make more might not make you happier. It might put more stress on your body, might take you away from your family, might take you away from your true goals. And the reality is, if we can help a kid or someone by telling your story, that would make our lives. That's exactly the goal that we've put out there. So I'm glad that you're kind of saying that whole concept.
That's great.
Yeah. Well, I've one more kind of thought is, with trends that are like with the trend changing, and kind of Instagram and the 10 seconds or 30 seconds of a reel and the lack of attention spans, do you see yourself kind of transitioning some of the projects that you're working on into shorter sections that could be used on a YouTube trend and grow your channel that way? Or are you really focused on putting out longer length films? Is that the goal?
I mean, it has to suit the narrative, not the platform,
right?
For me.
Okay.
Yeah. If I can tell a narrative effectively, interestingly, engagingly, creatively in 7 minutes instead of 70 minutes, then, you know, I'll probably do it. You know, there's a lot of stories that are conducive to a shorter format. Technique surfing stuff, it's not, there are so many caveats, yeah, and sometimes you can't win. I put out a 2-minute duck diving video once, and people were like, you know, what about this and what about that? You're on a toothpick. What about bigger waves? Blah blah blah. And I was just like, oh, this is after everybody was like, just put out shorter clips. I'm sick of watching these long videos. You know? So again, trying to serve everybody or trying to serve an algorithm, you're always going to fail. I knew people that in Bondi, which is, you know, an hour and a half south. I knew people who had $10 million a month Facebook businesses, right? And then Facebook changed their algorithm, boom, no business at all, closed. So, you know, I think if you set yourself up that way and you're too dependent on the platform that you're using, you are going to fail. So I'm always trying to supersede that. So if YouTube, for any instance, became redundant and it did a Vine or whatever and sort of came and went, then, you know, I'd hopefully have some universally enjoyable content to put out on whatever other platform comes to replace it. So, and I'll be fine. You know, I've got skills. I don't need to be a surfer. I don't need to be a surf YouTuber. I can do whatever I want. So it's all good.
That's one way to look at it, because that even the changes on the YouTube platform were big, right? You know, now they're kind of listening, I think, to the community, and now 8-minute videos can have 2 ads, and a lot of things are coming through. But there was a big shift with the 1,000 subscriber need to have ads and paid, and that kind of kicked in the butt a lot of people. Now, the majority of the people who were making an income on YouTube didn't have that issue because they had more than 1,000 subscribers. But yeah, you can't really be tied to the algorithm, because when it changes, you could lose your entire business.
Exactly. And you know, you're always going to make those subtle adjustments. But the broader picture is always going to be consistent, I think.
Yeah.
You know, and you'll probably see, like, for instance, with the multiple ad thing, you'll probably see my videos dropping back to 8 minutes instead of 10, because, you know, if that's what people want. But you'll also see a lot of minutes that extend into the teens, you know, because sometimes it needs that, or I feel like I want that, you know. So yeah, it's It just depends. You've got to have your goalposts in place and work out what you're shooting for, why you're shooting for it, and what sort of content you want to put out. We're all so unique, and that's the thing. We've all got this unique perspective to share on storytelling. And if I did a technique video using the exact same script on how to do a cutback, how to make your cutback better, it would be very different to how someone like, who else does technique stuff, like Noel Salas, the guy in, I can't remember what his channel's called, but anyway, that guy who surfs really well, if he did a video, it would be incredibly different to mine. If it was the exact same script, it would probably be a different length and all the different stuff. So, there's a place for everybody. You've just got to know who you are and feel comfortable with speaking from that place.
Yeah. So with that being said, where do you see your channel going? I think we've kind of already covered that, but it's really just following the heart of Kale and putting out content that you love putting out. Is that really where it's going?
Yeah, for sure. I'm going to bring on some help because I can't keep up the current schedule because my body suffers when I edit for too long, and then I can't surf as well, and that means I really suffer. So I'm going to bring on an editor, and we're going to batch film surf tutorials. So we'll film 8 or 9 or 10 tutorials, and he'll edit those, and we'll release those once a week, and that will free me up to do this sort of stuff. So build surfing, very, very surf focused, but build that into the van life, and really sort of share different stories and stuff. I've been speaking with some various tourism boards about doing some stuff. I've been speaking with TV networks, but
cool.
it's just a lot of conversations and stuff at the moment. As opposed to signing on the dotted line. So yeah, it could go in any direction, but ideally I would love to move more in a fictional direction, creatively, not so much on YouTube, but creatively outside of that, it would be my ideal situation. And I chase that every single day. So yeah.
But having that kind of bank of pre-baked videos that are going to be, launched for the next 8 weeks allows you to say, hey, I'm going to take these 8 weeks and focus on what I want to be doing on the other side and continue to engage with your community. So that makes sense. Total sense. So I'm excited to continue to watch. I'm excited to watch a lot more as I get ready to go down to Florida with my wife and my son. And hopefully there'll be some swell, but we'll see how it goes.
Is it hurricane season this time of year? You get some swells?
Yeah. So it's on the way. I think hurricane season's till the first or second week of October.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. It goes through October for sure.
Yeah. So we'll see. Now that's kind of like one of those bittersweet things. It's like, I want a hurricane, but at the same time, I don't.
Oh yeah. For the family.
Yeah.
Pumping waves, but they're sitting in the rain.
Exactly. Yeah. But it is definitely a seasonal thing. And as your summer begins, our winter is there is a lot more consistent surfing, but it's still Florida. You're not finding a point break, and you're not going to you maybe get two turns if it's a good day.
Yeah, sounds like Adelaide.
Yeah. We're not as fruitfully surfing as you guys have it there. So
we're very lucky. We're so lucky.
We definitely want to get out. Drew's been to Australia. I haven't, and we've talked about getting out there for the channel. I think it'd be just super cool to get out there. So if we come, we'll definitely check in, and we'll do another podcast because we want to follow up at what 100 is and how the thought process has changed, and really kind of continue that path of checking in with all the guys that we're working with, and we would
especially getting into fictional content. That's got to be awesome. That's gonna be cool.
Yeah.
Well, we hope so. By then, far out.
But you don't know that you could put a video out tomorrow and you could get 25,000 subscribers, and then you're only 25 away from 100. And
so we'll see.
Yeah, you never know. But I appreciate you hopping on the call. I hope the surf was great this morning, and I hope the evening brings you some fun in the sun.
Thank you. Thanks very much for having me, guys.
Yeah,
thanks, Kale.
It was awesome. So thanks so much, and we'll link all of his social in there, and make sure you guys check out on iTunes. Both of his documentaries are available. and they're great watches, super informative, and you get to listen to Kale. So it's enjoyable for sure. So thanks so much for being on, and we'll look forward to catching up soon.
Thanks, boys.